he was asked by the Prime Minister to provide an opinion as to whether he supported the invocation of the Emergency Act. Mr. Vigneault explained that based on both his understanding that the Emergencies Act definition of threat to the security of Canada was broader than the CSIS Act, as well as based on his opinion of everything he had seen to that point, he advised the Prime Minister of his belief that it was indeed required to invoke the Act. And again, you remember saying that during the closed session?
Yes.
Crucial testimony from David Vigneault today.
What is lawful dissent and protest versus what are activities that could be potentially, threat-related activity under the CSIS Act.
The Emergencies Act states a public order emergency is a threat to Canada's security, as defined in the Canadian Security Intelligence Service Act, one that the director had previously said did not meet the spy agency's strict threshold. However, he was satisfied that a threat to national security had to be interpreted differently in the context of the Emergencies Act.
And yet you still advised the Prime Minister to invoke the Emergencies Act?
Yes, I did.
And you did that not because you thought that there was the protest posed a threat to the security of Canada as defined in Section 2 of the CSIS Act, but because you were reassured that threat to the security of Canada had a different meaning in the context of the Emergencies Act.
I think my testimony was in part that, but it was also based on all of the other information that I became aware of.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau declared a public order emergency on February 14th, the first time the legislation was used since its 1988 inception.
From now on, for the balance of the week, we will be hearing from a number of senior government ministers, including the Prime Minister and the Deputy Prime Minister.
And first up, Emergency Preparedness Minister and former Toronto Chief of Police Bill Blair, who said he warned his cabinet colleagues to keep their rhetoric temperate when it came to the convoy protest.
I was concerned that inflammatory language could incite a more violent response, potentially, or incite others to continue to come to the protest.
Blair going as far as critiquing the way Ottawa police handled the protests from the start.
I think initially their response was incorrect. Based on the intelligence that they had, I think allowing those trucks into the downtown core to establish themselves and become essentially very large barricades, in hindsight, and I appreciate this is the clarity of my hindsight, but I believe that was a mistake.
He then said the blockades, especially at the borders, were harming Canada's trading reputation and hurting the economy, and he thought police had exhausted existing powers or couldn't enforce laws because of safety concerns.
For me, the impact that it was having, not just in the city of Ottawa, but I don't want to minimize what was going on in Ottawa by any stretch of the imagination, but right across the country, particularly as it pertains to critical infrastructure, for me, elevated the situation to a national emergency.
The Civil Liberties Association has argued that the invocation of the Act was an overreach. The heads of the RCMP, OPP, and Ottawa Police have also testified that existing authorities would have been enough to handle the convoy.